Yes, Uncle Casey changes it up every now and then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we are live.
All right. A good evening, everyone, and welcome to A Good Medicine Way. It's another beautiful Monday night here, February 10th. 10 is my favorite number. A happy early Valentine's Day to everyone. This Friday is Valentine's Day. So all y'all that are in relationships and in love, remember, get those chocolates and those flowers early. Just kidding. But yes, for those of you who do not know me, my name is Uketitaka, which means white star in the Pawnee language. I'm coming to you from the land of the Cheyenne and Arapaho in El Reno, Oklahoma. But Good Medicine Way comes to you from the land of the Tewa people or the Pueblo people. It's also home to the Dene and the Apache. They got a lot of different tribes within Albuquerque region, within the Sandia Mountains. So Good Medicine Way comes to you from Albuquerque, New Mexico. So yeah, it's very awesome to have you all here tonight, and I'm looking forward to hearing from our speaker tonight, Michael Brennan. Yeah, as we start many of our ceremonies, many of our meetings where we all gather together, we usually start with a prayer. So I'm going to go ahead and hand this off to Nikki, who is in person tonight. She will be rendering an opening prayer for us. So whenever you're ready, Nikki, go ahead and take it away.
So this one is actually an excerpt from the book The Ceremony by Leslie Marmon Silko. I believe she wrote the three poems at the beginning of the book, at least from what I could find online real quick in the last couple minutes. Um, but I'll read the poem. I think I just like to write down words and like poems that I like to go back to sometimes. So these ones, I think it's the three poems put together. I don't really remember. I didn't label it, so yeah. To sit isinako. That woman is sitting in her room, and whatever she thinks about appears. She thought of her sisters, Nasi Tsi and Itzi, and together they created the universe, this world, and the four worlds below. Thought woman, the spider, named things, and as she named them, they appeared. She's sitting in her room thinking of a story now. I'm telling you the story she's thinking. Ceremony. I will tell you something about stories. They aren't just entertainment. Don't be fooled. They are all we have, you see. All we have to fight off illness and death. You don't have anything if you don't have the stories. Their evil is mighty. But it can't stand up to our stories, so they try to destroy the stories. Let the stories be confused or forgotten. They would like that. They would be happy, because we would be defenseless then. He rubbed his belly. I keep them here. Here, put your hand on it. See, it's moving. There is life here for the people. And in the belly of the story, the rituals and the ceremony are still growing. What she said, the only cure I know is a good ceremony. That's what she said. Sunrise.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that, Nikki, and thank you for stepping up last second too. A lot of us move in certain times. We were just talking. Uncle Casey was just saying something about how we kind of just start things when we're ready. So that's another one of them things right there with Nikki stepping up. So I'm very glad. Thank you very much, Nikki, for offering our prayer this evening. All right. So now we're going to hand this on over to Brian. In the same way that we start a lot of our times together with prayer, we also started with song. This will, allow us to dance along with Creator and just help us to call him here with us. Where two or more are gathered, he is there. So I'm going to go ahead and hand this on over to Brian for our opening song. So go ahead and take it away, Brian.
Yahweh, Yahweh, yo, Yahweh, yo, Yahweh, 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 yo, Yahweh, yo, Yahweh, 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 oh, Yahweh, Yahweh, yo, Yahweh, yo, Yahweh, 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 yo, Yahweh, yo, Yahweh, Yahweh, holy is Yahweh, holy is Yahweh, and His Son Yeshua. Holy is Yahweh, and His Son Yeshua. Holy is Yahweh, and His Son Yeshua. Holy is Yahweh, holy is Yahweh, and His Son Yeshua. Holy is Yahweh, and His Son Yeshua. Holy is Yahweh, and His Son Yeshua. Yahweh, 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 oh, Yahweh, Yahweh, oh, Yahweh, yo, Yahweh, 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 oh, Yahweh, yo, Yahweh, 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 oh, Yahweh, Yahweh, oh, Yahweh, yo, Yahweh, 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 oh, Yahweh, yo, Yahweh, Yahweh, holy is Yahweh, holy is Yahweh, and His Son Yeshua. Holy is Yahweh, and His Son Yeshua. Holy is Yahweh, and His Son Yeshua. Holy is Yahweh, holy is Yahweh, and His Son Yeshua. Holy is Yahweh, and His Son Yeshua. Holy is Yahweh, and His Son Yeshua. And His Son Yeshua. And His Son Yeshua.
All right, all right. Thank you, Brian, for that awesome song. A Holy is Yahweh, right? Yeah, I like that song. That's a very good one. Hey, and yes, it was great to hear everyone singing in the background too. All right. So now we're going to go into another segment that we like to call Creation Insights. And this is where we call on someone to um, share a little bit about what Creator has been speaking to them. So I'm going to go ahead and invite Jean Stevenson to offer our creation insights tonight. So go ahead and take it away, Jean, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, I had reached out to Brian late last week because we had something happen on Friday that really got me to thinking. Friday morning, we were getting our children ready to go to school and everything, and our two oldest ones had left. And as the youngest one was getting ready, she and I were in our living room, and we heard a thump against our patio door. And she left and we went over to the patio door and we looked, and there on the ground, sitting there, just kind of shaking, was a little sparrow. Little sparrow had flown into our patio door and was clearly just stunned, just sitting there. And my daughter and I oohed and awed over it, and oh, poor thing. And she went and she left for school, and then I was standing there just watching this bird, and I was a little concerned because I had to let our dogs out, and our one dog is a bird dog. And I thought, well, we need to do something with this bird because if I let our dogs out, this bird dog is going to have a breakfast snack, and I didn't want that to happen. So I went outside and I closed the door behind me, and let me pick it up, and I held it, and just again, it was clearly just stunned, and I looked, and sure enough, it had flown in, and it had given itself a nice bird shiner on one side of its face. It was swelling up and closed, and it was kind of panting a little bit, and I just held it for a bit, and just I'm sure that I probably was adding to its stress, this big giant thing, cupping it in its hands. But I held it for a while and pet it for a while, and I turned around and I looked at what would cause a bird to fly into our patio door, and we have all glass patio doors. And it turns out that the morning light was shining on the door in such a way that it gave a perfect reflection of our backyard with our fake green grass, because grass doesn't grow very easily in Flagstaff area. Our fake green grass and some of the plants that are kind of in hibernation for the winter, and the blue sky. And it was like I said, a perfect reflection. And it wasn't that we keep our doors immaculate. I wish we did, but it wasn't that. It was just the way the light was shining on it that this bird thought it was an extension of the backyard, and that's what made it fly into our patio door. And it just got me to thinking about how there have been times, I know even in this community, in the Good Medicine Way community, we have stories about either organizations or communities that we belong to, family or friends, that we had been connected to, that felt safe, but turned out for one reason or another not to be. And kind of participating in those relationships brought pain to us in some way. We thought we were safe to fly, and ended up flying into not a mirage, but a glass door. And I was just sitting there, and Creator was speaking that to me, because I've had that experience as well, and how it's okay, because I knew the bird was going to be okay. It just needed some time to collect its breath, to collect itself, to calm itself down, and to regain some strength before it flew off again. And sure enough, what ended up happening was I ended up setting it on a rock, putting it in an open space so it could get some of the morning sun and regain some of its wits, and it eventually flew off. But it got me to thinking about the situations in our lives, and how it's okay for us to take time to collect ourselves, to breathe, to get our wits about us, and just know that it's very possible that while we're doing that, you're being held in Creator's hands, and He's sheltering you and protecting you, and giving you the space to do that. So that was the insight.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Jean. That was very encouraging, actually. I feel very bad for the bird, but I'm glad that he was okay. And that we too will be okay. Just be sure to look out for the clean glass windows. Just kidding. So that was funny. But yeah, so thank you, Jean. Thank you. Um, but yeah, if anyone, I just kind of wanted to put out a little plug. So if anyone would like to participate in offering a creation insight, don't be afraid to reach out to either myself or Brian and let us know that you'd like to share something that Creator has been speaking to you. We always like to hear from everyone, and this was a special treat tonight. So thank you for that. All right. All right, so now we're going to be reading the Lord's Prayer from the First Nations version. As Uncle Casey has challenged us, hopefully we remember most of the words, eh? And if you don't remember the words, try to remember the signs, eh? But yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and hand this on over to Brian, who will lead us in reading the Lord's Prayer from the First Nations version. So go ahead and take it away, Brian.
All right. Creator sets free, shows us how to pray. O great Spirit, our Father from above, We honor your name as sacred and holy. Bring your good road to us, where the beauty of your ways in the spirit world above is reflected in the earth below. Provide for us day by day the elk, the buffalo, the salmon, the corn, the squash, and the wild rice. All the things we need for each day. Release us from the things we have done wrong. In the same way, we release others who have done wrong to us. Guide us away from the things that tempt us to stray from your good road, and set us free from the evil one and his worthless ways. Aho, may it be so.
Yes, that was awesome. Yes,
Yeah.
hopefully we'll learn it. Go ahead, Uncle.
Yeah, we're getting it, aren't we? Yeah. I think if we had to, I think we could do it. So I think everybody, we started saying, let's try to learn it by heart, just the same way that we know the King James Version by heart. So our smoke signals that we have now is tomorrow and Thursday, Laura and I and a couple others, we're doing the sewing 101 for the Albuquerque High School students. And that's going really well. It's our second week into it, and they're getting their used to sewing. They're making patterns. It's really cool. These are just young people that are coming in. A couple of guys that are making vests, and the ladies are making ribbon skirts. So that's happening. So that's really cool. We're working with the school district on that, and we already got one more offer for March for another time to do another sewing circle with people, another school that's here in town. So that's really cool. Good outreach for us to be doing. Yep. We got our book study. We're doing The Journey to Elohe with Randy Woodley and Edith Woodley. We're going to be going into chapter 4, and this is we just finished Edith's story, and that was really powerful. She was really open in telling about her life, and now we're going to be going into Randy Woodley's story of his life, his early days, and boy, he was naughty. He was naughty going through there. Yeah, he started running with the wrong crowd, and he was a kind of not a bully, but yeah, he was a big guy, and yeah. So it was good to see some of that. He's got some. I was never a bully. I was always too small, so I got pushed around. But we got a couple things coming up. I need prayer. I'll be traveling to Las Cruces next week. I'll be doing a psychological evaluation, and then they're gonna see if I'm crazy enough to be a pastor. So tell people that. So I've done it before and I passed, but maybe things have changed now. So, but they gotta make sure that you're good and healthy mentally, so that you can handle the stresses and strains of ministry. And then coming up in March, we're gonna have a couple of trips. We're working on a website, a new website. We started one before, but now we have one of our local gals that we know. Her name was Alyssa Davis, who started a business of doing web design, and now she's picking up, and she's real creative on it, and she's going to be handling a lot of our, our media on that. So she'll be, doing things with us. We're sending her all the information we need, so that's going to be up and running here soon. It really looks nice, and it'll have a schedule. I just put in my schedule for that, and everything that I'll be doing in March is going to be on there. I'll be speaking at Grand Valley State University to their anthropology department. I'm going to be doing a talk called, maybe I should do it here too, it's called Anthropology of Indigenous Religion. And I'll be doing it, and they opened it up to the whole school, and the religious department, and a couple of Bible studies, and all of those are going to be coming to that. And then I'll be doing another talk with the NASA. One of my cousins here was talking, and I says, yeah, I'm going to be doing a talk with NASA. And she says, that is so cool. I didn't know if you knew anybody yet. Those ones that do spaceships. I said, no, it isn't that kind of NASA. It's Native American Student Association, NASA. And she really thought it was the aeronautics and that. So, boy, I don't think I could do that. But that's coming up too. So pray for me. And I'm also scheduling a talk there with the local Indian church that's in Michigan there as well. Last thing I want to bring up here is if you haven't seen yet, you probably will. Our son ran his fastest mile ever just this past Saturday. And the picture that they showed on the website there showed him off the ground. So it's like he's flying, actually flying. So he ran the mile in 4 minutes, 7 seconds. And his coach wants him to go 4 minutes or 4 seconds faster on his next time around. So we're going to be hopefully doing a 4 minute, 3 second mile. So he's a really fast, really smooth runner. So pray for him. He stays healthy and get qualified for nationals. So that's a trip I'm going to be taking in March here, going to Indianapolis to watch him run in nationals and be there with my son. That is all I have. Last announcement I need to make before we go into our giveaway time is that we do have a 501c3 now, and that's real new to us. We got a lot of work to do to fill in all the crossing the I's and dotting the T's. Say that backwards just for your sake. So somebody said that you got to cross your I's when you say that thing. So with that, that's happening and it's coming along, and it's been really a lot of work to get to this point. We have one of our own has stepped up to be our working with Laura with Treasury. She's in house here. Twyla is going to be helping us out on that. And then the other new thing that we have is that we've been doing it for a few weeks now. We have a matching grant up to $75,000. So everything that comes in is doubled, and it's really making a good deposit now. So it'll be good, some good seed money to start ministry in the future here. And I was going to go into just one more thing here. I did this some years ago, and somebody answered the call. So I'm going to throw this out there. I'm going to invite anybody to come and be a part of Good Medicine Way here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and join our team as we grow. Pray about it. You know, I know it's a big move. This family that did come down, they stayed with us for just over 2 years, and then they had to move on because of their sons that needed more attention health-wise. So if you feel called to the Lord's work and Good Medicine Way has been on your heart to be part of that work, I want to invite you to get in touch with us and have a place to minister. It's scary making big moves like this, but it does happen. Laura and I, some 25 years ago, we quit our jobs in Michigan. We packed up 4 kids. They were toddlers and 1 newborn, and we moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico to start ministry out here. So it is scary, but we trust the Lord and everything has worked out. It took time, but now look at us. Now we're here, and we got Good Medicine Way going. And we're looking at new things in the future here, and we're looking to add people to our family. So I wanted to throw that out there and just let you know that we need you, and the Lord needs you in His ministry. And with that, I want to turn it over to Brian, who will tell us about how to give, especially with the QR code in that.
Yeah, just thinking that's why that newborn at that time is so fast now, because you had him running across country when he was a little, right when he was a little one. But yeah, so we got a blanket here in house. That's kind of a traditional way in a lot of native circles for giving, and I'm going to put a digital blanket up on the screen, and it has a QR code that will take you to a PayPal interface where you can give with a credit card or other digital means. You don't have to be part of PayPal to do that. It's just the what we use to make it so that you can give in that way. And the links for that are also on our Facebook page. So it's pinned right to the top. And if you prefer not to give online, you can send things to our PO box, which is 3301 Coors Boulevard Northwest, Suite R349, and that's Albuquerque, New Mexico 87120, and that address will also be up on the digital blanket. If you would like to give in other ways, we're always open to that. If you have skills or gifts in some other ways, we always welcome that. People have gifted us flutes and drums and smudging stuff, sage and cedar and all kinds of things. If you have talents that you would like to contribute to our gatherings here, as Pititaka said earlier, just get in touch with us, and we'd love to get you involved. And so with that, I'll get that digital blanket up, and then I'll be doing a song while it's up. This one's a little bit more of a performative song. I usually try to stay away from performative stuff, but I think this one would be a little difficult for people to sing along with. And hopefully I'll be able to sing it pretty well. But it's a song by the band Thrice, who I've done some of their songs before, but they're really, really thoughtful and insightful band. Get that going.
I heard him practice. It's really going to be cool.
All you great men of power, you who boast of your feats, politicians and entrepreneurs, can you safeguard your breath in the night while you sleep? Keep your heart beating steady and sure. As you lie in your bed, does the thought haunt your head that you're really rather small? If there's one thing I know in this life, we are beggars all. All you champions of science and you rulers of men, can you summon the sun from its sleep? Does the earth seek your counsel on how fast to spin? Can you shut up the gates of the deep? Don't you know that all things hang as if by a string of the darkness, poised to fall? If there's one thing I know in this life, we are beggars all. All you big shots that swagger and stride with conceit, did you devise how your frame would be formed? To be raised in a palace or live out in the streets? Did they choose the place or hour you'd be born? Tell me, what can you claim? Not a thing that you name. Tell me if you can recall. Just one thing in this life's not a gift. What's been said? Can you see now that everything's grace? After all, if there's one thing I know in this life, we are beggars all.
Oh, yeah, that was really great, Brian. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. You're gonna have to give us the title of that song because I totally want to listen to it. Yeah. But anyway, all right. So now we will be going into reading Creator's Word, and that will be we'll be calling on Helen Wright to read Creator's Word tonight. That's Ephesians 4 verses 17 through 19. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 17 through 19. So, whenever you're ready, Helen, go ahead and take it away.
Okay, I'm almost there. I'm in Ephesians. Okay. So 17 through 24? Okay. I say this to you as one who represents the honored chief, or our honored chief. You must no longer walk the dark path of the nations who have chosen their own ways. Their minds have no good thoughts because the darkness has taken away their ability to see and think clearly. Their hearts have become as hard as stone and can no longer beat with the life that comes from the Great Spirit. This takes them down the path of greed and selfish pleasure, leading to an impure life. This is not the path you learned from the chosen one, for the true path to walk is only found in Creator Sets Free. Take off that worn out and stained outfit of your past life with its selfish desires and worthless ways of thinking. It no longer represents who you are. You are now true human beings with a new way of seeing and thinking. Put on the regalia of your new life. For you have been made new, created again to look like the one who made you, standing in a good way and walking a true and sacred path.
Thank you, Helen. All right, now we'll be going into a centering and stillness time. Brian Grover will be offering um, the Native American flute to prepare us to listen to the message tonight. After this, Uncle Casey will go into introducing our speaker, and then it'll be time for the feature presentation. So go ahead and take it away, Brian.
Brian, our speaker tonight is a fellow that we met. We were trying to figure out how many years ago, and we imagine it was over 13 years ago or so. He and several of his buddies from South Dakota came out to the Wachoni family camp. And a little story about how I got to know them. I didn't know they were coming, and they heard about the Wachoni family camp and how cool it was. And I was the director of Wachoni at that time after Richard had passed. And these guys, they came out and they rode motorcycles. And as they were coming down the road, they were making a lot of noise. They were all riding Harleys. And you know how they are. And it sounded like a gang coming. It sounded like the Hell's Angels were pulling into town. They were just really revving the motor, and then they're pulling in. And then I thought they were going to drive right past the camp, and the next thing I know, they were turning in. And I thought, oh no, we're in big trouble now. Got this biker gang coming in here. And they came in, and come to find out, there was these guys and they were just the coolest guys, and got to know them. And several of them went on to ministry in other areas. And Mike, he went on to ministry in a couple other areas too. And now Mike is now with us. So I just wanted to share that a little bit. I've been trying to keep up with him and his travels, and I think he's been keeping up with us. And so we invited him to be our guest speaker tonight. Mike Brennan.
Thank you, Casey. Actually, my wife and I came out there even a couple years before that, and we were there a couple times before we brought all our guys out from Pine Ridge. And all of those guys that came with us, they're all in ministry right now, either pastor or youth pastor. So good stuff happening. It's my honor to speak with you tonight. We're in Ephesians chapter 4, verses 17, 18, and 19. And I'm going to read through there again. I'm going to be in NIV, and we'll just make some notes. And if you like to underline things, I'll give you some chances to do that. And this is one of those lessons that I try to constantly remind myself of. If I've done anything right in my ministry, in my life as a Christian, I got saved late in life, about 35, and I'm 65 now. So if I've done anything right, it's that I identify godly older men, and I've asked them to speak anything into my life at any time they want to. I tell them I'm not always going to listen, maybe, but I always want to hear it. And this is one of those lessons. One told me, Don Osceola from Seminole Reservation, he told me, take care of the pennies and the dollars will take care of themselves. And I ain't talking about money. That's what he told me. So this was the lesson here. You got to take care of those pennies. Otherwise, it's a slippery slope, in our walk. We got to be careful. So thank you for listening to me, and we'll jump right into it. I know that the main thing here, if you got to take anything home from this, it's 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 13. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 13. And if I give scripture, I always give it twice because I know men are present. So Paul, in his last letter, is talking about the end times, the last days. And he says, if sin is left unchecked, it will get worse and worse. If sin is left unchecked, it will get worse and worse. And that's why you got to watch after them pennies. You got to be careful of all these little things. And one of the best examples of this is actually in Matthew chapter 2, verse 2. And then if you jump to 16, let me just flip over there and read that for you real quick. Make a point here. Matthew chapter 2, verse 2. Where is the one king who has been born king of the Jews? This is Herod wanting to know. We saw the star in the east, and we have come to worship him. And then if you jump over to verse 16, when Herod realized that he had been outwitted by the Magi, he was furious, and he gave orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem and the vicinity who were 2 years old and under, in accordance with the time he had learned from the Magi. So here, people will use this a lot of times. They'll use this to say, well, see, that's why the Bible can't be true. Because, I mean, who would say kill all the babies? That just doesn't make sense. But it's even in the history books. It's extra biblical even. And that's one of the best examples of how sin got worse and worse and worse in somebody. Because the wise men came to Herod, and and if you read the history books, you'll get some of this that colors in a little bit for us. Herod got worse and worse. Number one thing, he thought one of his servants was whispering about him, so he had him killed. Then he thought the high priest was giving him unwise counsel, and he had him killed. Then his mother-in-law plotting against him. He thought she was plotting against him. We don't know. He had her killed. Then he thought his aunt was plotting against him, and he had her killed. And his uncle, who was one of his military leaders, he thought he disagreed with him, so he had him killed. And his wife took the side of the uncle, so he had his wife killed. So at his death, just before his death, he gave orders for his men to go out, and if anybody cheered when they found out he had died, he said, shoot poisonous arrows at the crowd. That's in the history books. So it's not so unusual that we find in scripture where he says, kill all the kids. That was the seventh occasion that we know of craziness from him. And this is part of that sixfold digression of sin. It's not like stair stepping down. It's more like a slippery slope. And that's why we have to take care of those pennies. We have to watch over the little things in our life. My wife and I, we've had almost 90 therapeutic foster kids. So when we go in, we love to take them to places they'd never been. So we go into like an amusement park. We went to Williamsburg one time. They had this thing called the Griffin, and it was crazy because it was supposed to be the fastest at the time. And we when we go to an amusement park with, all these kids that we had 4 of our own, and then we had 9 foster kids at the time we went through here. So we take over the place when we go. And if you ride with me, you can't hold on. You got to stick your hands in the air. Well, when you go to get on the Griffin, it should have been a sign. They told me to take off my hat and sit on it. Well, that should have been a red flag for me, But it's crazy because they take you up and you hear this clicking and you hear the machines going up, up, up. And then they tour you all around. And from the top there, you can see the whole town of Williamsburg, And you're just looking around and it's beautiful and the trees are all there. And you're looking over the top of them and you're hearing the birds and everything. And then they move you over right to the edge. And then all of a sudden you're leaning down. And you can feel the blood starting to fill up your face and your front because you're leaning forward at this great height. And then all of a sudden you hear the worst sound ever. That click in the roller coaster lets you loose and you just start flying downhill. And it looks like you're going to crash into the ground before you swoop back up. That is what the slippery slope is like. That's what this is about here. Let's go through this. Verse 17, I tell you this and insist on it in the Lord, that you must no longer live as Gentiles do in the futility of their thinking. Underline futility of their thinking or whatever your translation says there. Verse 18, they are darkened in their understanding and separated from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them due to the hardening of their hearts. So you can underline darkening in their understanding or blindness or whatever you have, and you can underline hardening of their hearts. Then in verse 19, it says, having lost all sensitivity, they have given themselves over to sensuality. So underline lost all sensitivity and to sensuality. So as to indulge in every kind of impurity, underline every kind of impurity. That is the sixfold digression of sin that we have in this passage that's warning us about all these things. Number 1, the futility of their thinking. You trust in your own logic and your own understanding, and you think your reasoning is going to be enough. Basically, it's that first step where you think, I can take a little time off from God, I can take a little time away from this Jesus thing, very slight, minor self-dependence. Now, we just had that Super Bowl. How many of y'all think either one of them teams thought they could take a little time off in the last 2 weeks? Probably nobody, right? So in Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. So that's what this is talking about. This is talking about that point where we're not doing that, where we're not trusting in the Lord. We're thinking we can handle this. And I'm telling you, every bad thing that a person can do starts about this point. Every murder, rapist, drunk, child molester starts right at this point where you think whatever the distance is, and maybe they don't all go to that extreme, but it all starts with that point where you think, I can drive this in my life by myself. And that's the futility of human thinking. The second thing there that we underline is darkening in their understanding. This is where you have blurriness in your understanding. You're kind of fuzzy in your discernment. Your judgment is not quite what it should be. And it's because you lack intimacy with God. In other words, if you had a projector, like you're watching a movie, or one of those overhead projectors for your PowerPoints, and the projector isn't focused good, the light's on, but the focus is really off bad. And you can tell what it says, but it's not easy to understand. And it's like in our lives, right from wrong. But let's face it, that ain't where the battle is for most of us, is it? Better and best is where the battle is. And that, in this life, is where wisdom is, better and best. Right and wrong, yeah, that's pretty easy to tell. That's pretty clear most of the time. Where our battle is better and best. And that's what we need to focus on. That's the pennies. What's better and best? The third thing is the hardening of their hearts, it says. The blindness of their hearts. And I'm a kind of a word nerd. I like to dig into the word and find out what it says, because one of the things that kept me away from Jesus for many years is bad teaching. A lot of it was people saying this thing. This is what Bible says, but this is what we do. When your walk don't match your talk, that kept me away for a long time. And that made me harden my heart too. So this is important. Hardening of their hearts, the blindness of their hearts. And that word that we get, blindness of their hearts or darkening of their understanding, hardening of their hearts, the word for cataract. That's where we get our word for cataract. So if you had cataracts on your eyes, you have this, it's really hard to see clearly. It's hard to navigate moving forward because you have cataracts. So literally, it's living with scales on our vision. We have a vision, or we thought we had a vision, but now it doesn't seem so clear to us. The fourth thing is lost all sensitivity. And that just seems so sad to read, doesn't it? Because I know I've been there. This is where we're past feeling. This is the Greek word for numb. Okay, they've lost their sensitivity. It's like what they use for leprosy. And basically, I grew up in Hawaii, and on one of the islands there, the Big Island, there's this place that still today is a leprosy colony. And I used to think, before I went there and understood things, that it just eats you away, but you become numb in your extremities, your fingertips, your nose, your lips, your ears, and basically you ruin yourself. You destroy your own body. And that's where this is. Lost all sensitivity, that's when you just walk up and turn the projector light off. That's a scary place to be. This is the point at which most people start questioning their salvation. Am I even saved? What was that even about? And I'm afraid that there's a lot of people in our churches today that are there. And this warning to take care of the penny says, if left unchecked, sin will get worse and worse. The fifth thing is this: given over to sensuality. And I think the King James, I think it is, says lewdness. You can check that out. And that word that they translate in all of these, whether it's lewdness or lost all sensitivity, it's one of those words in the Bible that they're not sure. They don't have a definite literal translation of it. But it's always used. It means someone who absolutely hates holiness. They hate holiness. In Scripture, it's always used to describe grotesque sin, terrible things, things that at step one would have made you sick. They would have made you angry to think about somebody doing those things. And here you are at this step, accepting it. And it all starts with, I just don't feel hurt by not being around Jesus. I just don't need God for every minute. I heard somebody say recently, man, do you think you need God to go to, church and all that? And they said, man, I need God to go to Walmart. I need him for every little thing. And that's where we got to stay. We got to stay close. Otherwise, it's a slippery slope. Number 6, it says they were given into every kind of impurity. And that's a heart that desires more sin. And I know probably everybody here that's listening knows this. They know someone, maybe even right now, that's at a point where they say, I don't care what it is, I want it. I don't care who it hurts. I don't care if it hurts my family, my kids, my wife, my husband, or whatever it is. I just want more of that. And we probably know somebody right now. And it started because we didn't watch our baby steps. We didn't take care of the pennies. We strung too many days of ignoring God together, and then we found ourselves on a slippery slope. Now, it's like that roller coaster, that first step is slow. That first step, futility of our thinking, that gives us time to jump off. That gives us time to draw back. And this all seems pretty sad until we read verse 20. And verse 20 says this, you, however, did not come to know Christ that way. Surely you have heard of him and were taught in him in accordance with the truth that is in Jesus. Man, that's good news for me. That's a chance to get off. And here we have this promise. We didn't learn Jesus that way. We didn't learn about things. This is not the good road. This is not one of the paths that the Bible talks about. This is not ordained. We need to get off and get back to the paths that he ordains, that he orders the steps of. In Romans 8:37, it says that we have the ability to get off, It says that we have the ability to be more than conquerors. We can get off the ride at step 1. And that's where we need to focus our attention. Because this whole Jesus thing, I don't think you can do this alone. I think you need friends. I think you need brothers and sisters and people to come alongside. That's why the Bible says, don't forsake the assembling of yourselves together. You need each other. We need each other. We need to be sharpened. Iron sharpens iron. We need to be sharpened by each other. We need to look out for each other, make sure we don't get to part 2 or 3 or 4 or on. We need to watch our futility of our own thinking and rely on God. I try to pick good friends, and I try to pick friends that would call me on stuff that I should not do. And I also try to be that kind of friend to them. Because this slippery slope reminds me of a story way back in, when I first got saved, people were going to church and telling me all these great stories and stuff. I wish I wrote them all down. But this one I definitely remember. It was about the Eskimos, they moving around and they're hunting, and when you clean the animals and it draws the predators in, and they come in at night and they try to get out there, and the wolves and such come into your little area where you're sleeping, and they try to eat, and they're drawn in. Well, what the smart Eskimo will do, he'll take this big knife, very sharp knife, and he'll dip it in blood and he'll let it freeze. And then he'll dip that again and let it freeze. And then he'll dip it again and let it freeze until he has his handle and this blood popsicle. And the wise Eskimo goes out on the tundra, the frozen tundra, and he jams it handle first into the tundra. And at night, when the wolf comes up, he starts licking that blood. And he licks that popsicle blood over and over, and he laps down to the blade. And at some point, he doesn't know where he's cutting his tongue, and his blood is started and the other blood stopped. And in the morning, the Eskimo finds the wolf dead out on the frozen tundra. And that's this picture here that we have in scripture. Man, let's watch our pennies. Let's watch the futility of our own thinking so we don't go down this slippery slope and wind up like so many others. We're incredibly blessed to have each other right here, right now, tonight. We are blessed. Let's watch out for each other. Oh, Casey, if we have any time, I'd like to tell a little bit about what's going on with us.
Yes, go ahead and, yeah, you got the time now.
Okay.
Wanted to hear that. And
All
then
right.
we'll, right after that, then we'll go into another reflection time. And
Okay.
then Q&R. Go ahead.
Right now, my wife and I, we've been planting churches for about 30 years on reservations all over, 5 different reservations. We're on the Wind River Reservation in Wyoming right now. And we've not only had a lot of therapeutic foster kids, all our foster kids, almost 90 of them had been sexually abused. So we've worked with that, and we've actually gotten women out of sex trafficking and snuck them away to different Christian homes that we knew of throughout the years. But right now we are setting up what we call Hibiscus Haven. I don't know if you can see that logo, but if you type in hibiscushaven.org, you'll go to our website, and it'll tell you a lot about what we're doing and how we're trying to set up a safe place to get the women that are rescued from sex trafficking, so that they can have a godly place to grow, to get back, to reground in the world before they have to go back out into the world. And my wife, she's counseling right now in the other room. We both went to Liberty. She went to Liberty for psychology. I went to the seminary in Liberty University. And so we're setting that up. And there's a place that you can donate online, but that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for prayer. That's the most important thing. And if you go there, you read about these girls, Native women, that includes Alaskan, Hawaiian, Polynesian. They make up 4%, just 4% male, female children. We make up 4% of the United States. Yet our women alone make up 40% of those caught up in sex trafficking. This should not be. So that's what laid it on my heart. My wife, before I met her, she had been trafficked. And so this is, she thinks God created her for such a time as this. And that's what we're doing right now, is we're working on setting up a safe house called Hibiscus Haven. And if you want to be a part of that, you can check out that website. Thank you.
All right, we're going to go into a little reflection time, then go into Q&R.
Hey, all right. Well, now it's time to go into our question and response or our discussion time. So, Brian will be leading us in that once he figures out the technical things that are happening right now. Okay. And then we can ask a few questions, or we can share our insights, or share what was going through our heads when we were listening to what was shared tonight. So yeah, whenever you're ready, Brian.
I got something right off.
All right, I think we're back. So yeah, go ahead, Casey.
All right, I'll start in here, and then other people can follow. Uh, yeah, Mike, thank you for that presentation there. Uh, I've been thinking about this a long time. Most of my life. It just seems like uh, I'm only going to speak for men. Is that are we? Is it biologically we find ourselves caught up in the slippery slope because hormones and that just kind of take over sometimes. Is it a man thing to want to get in trouble? Is it maybe just your take on that? Is it something biological or something mental that we're dealing with? Because I have gone through times when I just I feel like Paul. The thing that I want to do is the thing that I don't do, and the thing that I don't want to do, that's the thing that I do. You know, but any guidance on that?
As far as me, I think we are definitely hardwired different. Me and my wife, we've done some marriage counseling for people and things like that, and it's so important to get both sides of that. Because I think women do. This does apply to everyone. It says, because the one passage where it talks about that in Second Timothy, that I don't know that I turned there, but it talks about how it it gets worse and worse. It's Second Timothy chapter 12. I mean, chapter 3, verse 12. Chapter 3, verse 12. In fact, everyone who wants to live a godly life in Christ Jesus will be persecuted, while evil men and impostors will go from bad to worse, deceiving and being deceived. I think both of us, I think everyone deceives, and I mean, women and men. I don't think, it's just one. Although, you know, I'll admit with you, Casey, we got a problem, men do for sure. And I can't speak for women, but I have heard my wife talk about it enough to know that they struggle with certain things too. I think it was C.S. Lewis that said, I need to know no other heart than my own to know what evil lurks in the hearts of men.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are like some biological differences, but I think it's more of a cultural thing uh, in the United States, especially because our culture tends to burden the women with the responsibility to fix things and those kinds of regards. Like the scripture clearly tells us, Jesus said, if your eye causes you to sin, then pluck it out. So like the onus is on the person that's looking to be responsible with their thoughts and with their sight. But in our society, if there's a problem, we tend to tell the women to dress differently rather than tell the men to get their hearts right and their minds right. So I think in our society, men are often given a pass, are given the easy way, or the responsibility to fix the situation is unfairly put on the women more times than not. So I think that men mentally in our culture become lazy. So I think it's rather than a biological thing, I think it's more of a cultural thing. But I do think, yeah, that men can tend to slack a lot more than women tend to. And to me, from my view, I think it's more of a cultural thing than a biological one. Yeah, because I know for myself, like what Mike was talking about with the pennies. Like you might think, oh, this is just a little thing, this isn't a big deal. But the thing you have to ask yourself is, what road am I turning onto with this choice? What steps am I going on? And where does this road ultimately lead? And I think that's the other big problem that we have, is that our event horizon is really small. We only see like 10 feet in front of us. And we're not thinking about, okay, where's this road I've turned onto? Where does it ultimately go? And is that ultimately where I want to end up or not? And if it's not where you want to go, then you got to get back on the right road that goes to where you want to end up. But yeah.
Boy, I wish I had
Ellen.
reasoning
Oh,
when
go ahead, Mike.
I said I wish I had that kind of reasoning when I was younger, to look down the road and say, wow, yeah, should I go down this road? No, I was like flying down that road, you know?
Yeah, there was like no stop signs, no yield. It was just go all full out. I know. I think somebody said this a while ago, is that go easy on everybody, because everybody's got a past they're dealing with. They've probably made mistakes, things that they wish they wouldn't have done, things that they wish they would have done better. So give a lot of grace to people, and a lot of times give them a lot of second chances too.
That's right. We were talking about that this morning, my wife and I. We do devotions and we spend time together about the devotions and stuff. And what was funny is that years ago, when we were on Pine Ridge Reservation and we were out there, we had, critters, and we had chickens, and we had one rooster that just did not like her for some reason and would terrorize her. So I'd be gone early and come back home, and I would see a string of dishes and broomsticks and everything to where her car parked, where she would load her arms up and throw them at the rooster as she made her way to the car. And we saw a quote this morning that says, "Be kind to everyone today. You never know who got chased by their rooster this morning."
All right, Helen, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to comment on that comment with the men and the women. I think maybe part of the biology and part of the cultural is that women tend to internalize. When something bad happens, we blame ourselves and we tend to accept that responsibility. I think, at least in our culture, men tend to externalize. Oh, it's somebody else. It's your fault. And when you have those two extremes, it becomes really easy to put the onus on the women. And then to make matters worse, often the women have the responsibility or the perceived responsibility, but they don't have the rights or the power to act on it. I think you can't have one without the other and get it done. And it doesn't work either to put all the rights and all the responsibility on one person. That's too much for any one person. But I think for me, that's where the biology and the culture kind of meet, is somewhere in there. But I think that's where we need these good teachings to help us get the balance between it.
Yeah. So in-house, we got somebody.
Go ahead, Twyla.
Of observation relating to your question, Casey, that I kind of have always thought about that as well. I had two brothers and one sister growing up, and I had many boy cousins and only a few girl cousins. And in my family, one brother had a different father than me, and my sister had a different father. But the two boys in my family, and almost all of the boy cousins, except for maybe 2 out of 9, were constantly stirring up trouble from tiny ages, 5 years old. And out of 7 girls, only one of them would join in with the boys. And the other girls, we would stand back and go, no, I'm not going to do that. Mom will not like it. I'm not going to do that. And so as I was growing up, and I had 3 daughters and 1 son, I began to notice as well that my son had different thoughts about
everything in life than my girls did. And I as well. You know, I never could understand why my brothers didn't mind getting in trouble and getting me in trouble, where I did my best to keep us all out of trouble, even as a little girl. So I remember a book that came to our attention when my husband was in Bible college called Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus.
Yeah.
And in that book, as I read it, I recognized as a wife and a mother, I can't expect my husband to see and behave the same way I do, even in my service to God. So it helped me to kind of help my husband along. And I didn't say I was right all the time, but I knew that my thought process was going to be a safer road than his was. So I kind of think that, yes, men do think differently than women do, even in the spiritual walk. That's just my opinion and observation.
Oh, go ahead, Nikki.
Yeah, so I have a couple of comments, but I think I just wanted like to respond really quick about like the conversation we're having about the girl versus boy, kind of like how fast, at like what rate they grow up at, because I know like, you know, how we're talking about women, girls tend to like grow up way more faster, mature faster than men in like Western societies, because I agree with Brian that like cultural kind of like stuff and other things, expectations, whatnot, can really influence gender roles and norms and whatnot. And I think just within Western society, it's always like, oh, like women have to like fix everything and like have to be more like do this, that, and like they have ultimately like more responsibilities than men typically have. And it's, I don't know, it just causes a lot of disharmony really, because it's not like an equal, just an equal balance. I know with eagles, they need 2 wings to fly, so if you're married, you know, each person has to do their part. Like if they represent a wing, like, you know, like you can't just flap one wing and expect to still like be in the sky. So I don't know, like I feel like I was gonna say more, but I'll leave it at that. But just listening to this entire thing, a lot of it like resonated with me, just about like the stuff about like unchecked sin and futility of human thinking and darkening of hearts. Because I've always been interested in like people that are different from me, and just kind of like getting along and learning more about just different people, like whether it's like disabled people, because I grew up with a disabled brother who's hard of hearing, and you know, he has a different life than the one that I have. And as an older brother, like I'm the younger sister, we had just kind of unique roles where even though he was the older brother, like I was always expected to kind of like take care of him, especially in public. Like, you know, I was always the kind of like the speaker for the both of us, just because my brother just had a hard time, you know, just being in public really. And he just hates just like going to drive-thrus, and he'd rather like talk to the person, just because he struggles with just like hearing, and it makes him come off as like, a lot of people like think of him as scary or like rude, when just in reality, like he can't hear you. And like they think he's angry because he like talks so loud and yells. But in reality, you know, that's just, you know, and it just bugs me, that type of like thing. So with gender roles, it's like, you know, I stepped up from a younger age, but you know, it was just, I don't know, like a lot of people, I would say on like Twitter or the internet, like call it like the eldest sister, kind of like not disease, but like complex maybe, where no matter what, like if you're the eldest sister, not even the eldest child, like it's gonna be your responsibility to take care of everyone else, and you know it really does just force us to like think a different way from everyone else and just worry about everyone else and just having, I don't know, for me it resulted in like anxiety and just like but yeah, but anyway, so with this like about like the futility of human thinking, I tried joining a different church because I was really interested in like Korean culture, and I don't know, yeah, definitely the Korean church is way different than like American churches. I would say it's very behind in its thinking, even for a church. But I don't know, just because Korea has an extra layer of like gender roles that are different from like America, where just they have that hierarchical like, oh, like the oldest man is like the most respected, and less people are less like likely to speak up and like, you know, kind of directly oppose, because if you speak up it's like directly opposing the eldest person there, and you know, even if they don't make it like the best decisions, it's just like kind of quietly go along with it. That's the kind of culture there, and it's, you don't want to stand out. It's not individual like American culture or, you know, like even Native culture. I don't know. I would say Native culture is more like communal type of like thing, but you know, as individuals we can exist, but also together we're stronger, right? But in Korea, it was different. Like I had a chance to go to like Korea, and I was just on the fence about it the whole time. But like, it's not like they were saying anything wrong. I don't know. It was just like feeling in my gut, and I just hated the way they phrased things, especially when they talked about like, you know, just like the human heart is like full of sin, and that's like the kind of the true essence of the human heart. That was like one thing I just didn't like. I didn't agree with it, and just didn't sound right, you know, even though I didn't know much about the Bible at the time, and I was just learning from them, and you know, but you know, like I said, like I don't know anything about the Bible, and like I didn't know enough about the Bible to argue with them. So I just had to ultimately learn more, but I knew to be wary of like bad teachers, because unfortunately there's just a lot of like bad leadership and bad spiritual, like just people that just have so much arrogance and they don't realize it. But when I went to Korea, like we had like a whole kind of I don't know, like it was like a world conference where a lot of people came from different countries, and we went there, and I didn't like the amount of money that was on display, I guess, because it was like a big concert venue and like, you know, just big performances all about like Jesus and stuff. And it was just like, wow, like I don't know, it was just very exorbitant, extravagant, but at the same time I was just like, I didn't feel right, and like until like, because I don't know, just a whole materialistic aspect of it, and it just made me so nervous. And when we finally, that entire like church really just kind of, they don't worship Jesus. They worship like the leader in Korea, and like unfortunately I found out the hard way that with Korea, like, you know, they struggled a lot after like the Korean War to like catch up with the rest of the world, because they were kind of behind. And a lot of organizations, I found out this history, like would call themselves Christians or churches to get more money from Western countries, to get the funding. So a lot of these church leaders in Korea, or I'm not sure about other Asian countries, but definitely in Korea, just were money minded, and I didn't like that in a church leader or a spiritual leader. Like, I know we need money, and that's like, you know, to like run things, and you know, fundraisers sometimes are a way of life. Same thing with grant writing, but I don't know. Everything felt wrong about it, and I finally had a confrontation with that church. I found out that a girl had passed in the basement of the church in Korea. And I was really freaked out about that because I didn't know about it. And like this incident happened before I went to Korea. So the people that I knew, they knew about this like news, but they like didn't tell me. They assumed that I knew. And like the lack of sympathy, because once I confronted them, I printed out the news article and I was like, did you know about this? And they're like, yeah, we did. and they were so nonchalant, and just like the lack of empathy, and just the like, I don't know, because they were defending like the church, and I just, I put my foot down. I was like, I don't want to be part of a church that, that where they find like a young girl's body in the basement, and like there were just evidence of her being choked and just being tortured before death, and that like, I don't know if it's part of Navajo culture, but I feel like I was kind of taught growing up that anything that's tortured before death is just, that's the worst way to go. Like whenever we like hunt, animals, it's just like we pray for them, we give respect. So just like hearing about this girl, like, sure, I don't know her, and she's like a Korean girl, like I'm not Korean, but I sympathize with it, and it was just crazy to me that like I had to like be like, because they're like, we didn't do anything, like we didn't kill that girl, like why do you want to leave this church? And I'm like, don't talk to me ever again, like, I'm leaving, just don't, like, I'm gonna call the police if you come to my house. So like, it was a hard thing, and it was just a lesson in everything.
All right, Helen, go ahead.
Well, first of all, there's a lot to unpack there, but there always is when Nikki shares. So that's a very good thing, because it's always worth listening to. First of all, that one-winged bird you mentioned has been flapping around in my imagination ever since. It's hard to get that. But I was thinking about the gender roles, and as you were talking about Korea, in Japan there was an expression called ichihime nitaro, and it means the first a princess and then two fat boys. And the idea was that your first child should be a girl so that she could help take care of the little boys. And it's kind of interesting that they even built that in. And today, even though families tend to have two kids, they still think of it as, okay, the first child's a girl, and then she can help mom with a little brother, because a big sister is much more tolerant of a little brother than a big brother is of a little sister. He's more likely to be impatient and pick on her and so on. So I was thinking about that, and although I think it used to be more true that siblings would help with each other in Japan, it's less true today. And yet I kind of see when the guys can't fix something, often they expect their wives, their moms, their sisters, or something to fix it with money, or to go apologize, or to be a go-between people that they've had an argument with or something. And I know part of it, sometimes it's not a big deal because it's in the culture and they kind of expect it, but I think it's hard when there's been some bad blood and they're expected to fix it. It's a lot easier if they're just making introductions or something. That's better. Well, I guess that's pretty much what I wanted to share.
No, you're good where you're at.
Okay, this is Ken. I want to shift just a little bit back to the beginning of the conversation, back to the teaching, about paying attention to the small things, and that it can take you down a rabbit hole into mire you down. The more, there you go. the more you get stuck in the muck, and you get mired down and sort of spiritually. But I've been doing some reading too about by a guy by the name of John Paul Lederach, who taught at Notre Dame there, and he did a lot of work in international negotiations between. He would go down to places in Colombia, down into the jungles, and work with the narcos and the campesinos, and try to find ways of people, figuring out how they can get out of that. And his philosophy was, it's the small things that get you out of the mire as well. So it works in both directions, I think. There is grace, there's certainly grace, but sometimes, he worked all over the world, and he talks about people needing to know themselves. You need to know yourself, measure yourself against the scriptures and against against the word, and like we are doing tonight. Center yourself, and then find some way to move in a positive way as the beginning of that. And sometimes it's a dramatic change in your life, but sometimes it takes a step or two, and you begin to move into a more positive way. So I just wanted to say, it works both ways. If you want to get out of a situation you're in, take a small step out, take another small step, find somebody who you can talk to, take another step, and you can begin to build your pathway out of the mire as you open yourself up to people that are willing to put a hand out and pull you up. So that was just my thinking in terms of, you can get mired down, but you can also, by thinking, sometimes you just have to take a small step to begin.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mike, tell us a little bit about what you said. You got men that speak into your life. Is that something like Ken was talking about? I know it.
Yeah, well, I started years ago, and actually, some of them are, I lost Mr. Osceola during COVID. He had diabetes and a heart disease. So when he went in the hospital, he never came back out. And we were really, really close. And I had chose him to speak into my life because we were on a mission trip. I took a group from the Seminole Reservation and surrounding communities to Pine Ridge, and we got all this Christmas stuff together. When we went back to Pine Ridge, where we had lived for so many years, and there was some white people in the group, and they're very time conscious about things. This is me being politically correct. So they're very time conscious, and they wanted to hurry up and get gas and get what they were going to eat at the gas station and get back in the car. And we're not making good time because Mr. Osceola is so slow. Well, he was in his upper 70s then, So, and he was such a godly man that we had some ladies they were kind of showing themselves about him being slow. And they said, finally, here he comes. He's coming out of the McDonald's was part of the gas station. And here he comes. And then they're saying, finally, here he comes to get in the van. And then he takes a turn and he goes around the back. And on the side of the McDonald's, way in the back, there was some homeless people. And he had waited and asked for any food that wasn't, claimed or anything like that. And he said that he had seen them when he went in. So on the way out, he took them some food. And the ladies that were so worried about time, boy, that shut their hot water off to a cold drip, and they didn't say anything more. And that is the kind of example that I want people speaking into my life. So when he was one of my godly mentors, and then another one was a fellow called David Hahn, and he went with us when we started the church down there in Gallup, where Rob McIntosh is at. And we rented out the Code Talker room down there in Gallup, and he went with us. And I saw him there just do everything he could, and he was the most gentle man. And he's been for years one of my mentors. And until recently, this past year, I think he's 82 now. He's been going up above the Arctic Circle to the native people up there and on the ice roads every winter to share the gospel. And I pick people that remind me of what I should be. And the greatest, highest job we can have in the kingdom of God is servant. So I pick people that I see that in, and I ask them to be my mentors.
Yeah, I think that really this the where you shared, Mike, in our discussion, really, I think it dovetails nicely with some of what we were talking about last week, because we were dealing some with like people coming through dramatic things and traumatic things, and how sometimes you just need to be with somebody in their trauma as they work through it. There's no, I think in our culture we want these like quick solutions and just take this pill or do this or that, and like suddenly everything's magically great again. And it reminded me when Ken was sharing about how, we take those small steps that get us on the wrong path, and then eventually we end up in this really bad place. But the only way to get back is to start taking the small steps, going back in the right way. And then, talking about mentors and relationships, I think again that's our culture tends to be very individualistic minded, and we really put a lot of value on individual accomplishments and not so much on creating community and meaningful relationships with each other. So I think it's really, kind of a call to all of us. I think like you don't have to be at elder status to be somebody's mentor. You just have to be a little bit further along than that person is. And I think there's a lot of kind of mutual mentorship that we can do too, where you have people who one's got a little more knowledge and experience in this area, this other person has a little more knowledge and experience in another area, and they can help, mentor each other. And so I think, there's it's not like a singular thing, like you just have a mentor. And like in Mike, you even mentioned, you have like multiple people who are speaking into your life. And I think that's something in the church in America that we really miss, that sense of really building community with one another and upholding each other. And you see that emphasized in the scripture all over the place. So that's, thinking about last week how we were talking about, the steps of getting out of traumatic situations and the steps of healing through that trauma. And now, this is kind of like the next thing. This is like, okay, once you're healed, how do you keep getting stronger, and how do you keep moving forward in relationship with Creator to live in a good way and to become a strong, healthy, and a harmonious person in creation. And so I think these 2 weeks kind of like fit together really nicely. But for me, I think the challenge that I'm hearing is, we need to really be about building community with one another. And with that, unless you got something to add, Mike, we'll hand it over to Heather.
I was thinking about how last week we were talking about fear, and how like this scripture talks about darkness, and how darkness and fear are kind of related, and how they're like pretty present in the world right now. And I think like sometimes it's hard not to feel other people's feelings. And it's even harder to differentiate your feelings from other people's feelings, And then it's even harder when the only way that you know how to differentiate is in isolation, Which makes it hard to realize, like, am I differentiating correctly, or am I differentiating from a place of fear? And like that's difficult because it's hard to like put your finger on what it is sometimes when it's hard to differentiate. And then it's even harder because sometimes in isolating to differentiate, you just kind of make it worse, if that makes sense. And so this passage about darkness is like a reminder that like there's a time for everything, like the seasons, So there's like the time for isolation, and there's the time for like not isolating, but there's like a cycle, and it's being more cognizant of your own cycles. And that's hard, I think, especially not just in our bodies, but also in our minds. And I think like you were talking about having a daily practice with your wife where you do devotional, and like how you all have your own moments throughout the day where you're cycling through everything you have to cycle through. But that moment makes you guys come together, and it centers you on the fact that you have a relationship that you also share with the Creator. And in that moment of centering, you bring the Creator into your family and into your life and into the lives of all of the people that you have touched through what you've done by having a relationship with Creator. And I think like this passage is a reminder of that, of like how a lot of times the things that are cyclical in our lives have a way of sweeping us up in them. And then we forget how critical it is to have that time where we center not just like our communities, but our families and our children and everything on God. Because it's very easy in fear and confusion to lose the focus, but the focus is always Creator. And so I appreciate this reminder because sometimes it's easy to forget and you have to remember. And this has helped me to remember. So thank you.
I recall when you were talking, it reminded me about Creator had to, from time to time, he got away from the crowds, he got away from everybody. And I always think, man, if the Son of God needs to get away from everybody, how much more do we?
Evan, tell us about your statement there, finding meaning in the muck.
So I always think about like, I don't know, it reminds me of like a lotus flower and how like so much grows in dirt. Like all seeds grow in dirt, obviously, but like so much grows in dirt. And like really, we're given the job to look after our brother and to plant the seeds, right? And so that means when we look out for our brother and we plant the seeds, we're going to be doing a lot of work in the muck. And we'll be having to find a lot of meaning in that when it seems really pointless. But that's not true because it's not really about us. It's about God and His plan, which is much bigger than us. And so I think about finding meaning in the muck a lot. And I usually piggyback it with don't yuck somebody's yum, which is funny because it's like we all have different tastes about how we want to do things, you know? And that goes from like ministry to what we eat for supper to like how we move our bodies. And all of these things are like, we're finding meaning, right? And like, it's like a child, like who just found something for the first time, or you just told them the story for the first time, and their eyes get super wide and they have like no idea how big and revolutionary this is. But you just planted a seed for them and they're going to grow it well beyond like what you grow it to be. And that is like the whole point of like getting the honor of looking after your brother and planting the seed, is because like that is the honor. There's no other honor than that, than walking through the muck and planting the seeds. Anything else is actually turning away from the honor. And I know that doesn't make sense to a lot of people because service has become this thing where you put them high on the box and you say, yes, thank you for everything you've done. And that's good too. Like you do have those moments. That's part of the seasons. But a big part of the seasons is planting in the muck.
True that. I'm always tending to quote this one guy. He said, the man who plants a tree knowing he will never sit in its shade has at least started to understand what life is about.
It's true.
You know, the book that we're reading with Randy and Edith's story, it might be good for, you know, some women to read the section on Edith's life in this book. You know, you know, she really went deep. She really went vulnerable, talking about her life as a growing up as a girl and a young lady. And she shared really deeply in here. I was really surprised too. And then also going into Randy's story as well. It's like, boy, they really cut to the chase, and they just really spoke truth about their lives. And I think many of us probably, we need to get to that point too. It's just that we need to tell truth about our lives, that, yeah, we're not perfect, and the only one that is perfect, and they killed him. And so just need to give everybody a little bit of grace, sometimes a lot of grace, as we continue on, and accept people where they are and who they are, and then start from there and do like Ken said, let's just take some little steps to make ourselves better, because it took many steps to get us to where we were. And let's make steps towards, and I think Good Medicine Way has provided this platform, this place, this safe place where you can say these things. You know, well, we're getting on a little late here, but I don't want to cut anybody off. But we want to thank you, Mike, for being with us. We could probably talk a little bit more here in circles here about these topics, and we just appreciate you coming on. Maybe in another 9 months or so, we'll ask you to come on back on again.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, we've had some of your buddies on there. You know, Rob has been our speaker here a couple different times over the years, and you guys got a lot of insight from the work that you've been doing, and I appreciate that. Well, thank you, everyone. I just want to turn it over to, where are we now? Our closing song here now. I'm sorry, I'm stepping in there, Kelsey. Yeah.
I was just kind of waiting just a moment, to say anything, because I feel like everyone else has something to share. But I just wanted to say thank you, Michael, for sharing what you have shared. There were a lot of great insights with what you had said tonight, and yes, I look forward to rewatching this over throughout the week. But yeah, what was I did have one quick little question, real quick, real quick. Um, so I know you were talking a lot about sensuality, right? So I was wondering, does that mean that it's like, the deed kind of things, or is it just like growing to be an adult or something?
Yeah,
how
I
yeah.
think it was much broader than that. I think, a lot of times when you read scripture, Rich Mullins said this, not me. He said, I've learned that different people groups underline different parts of the same verse. So when we read God's word, it's living, it's powerful, it's sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing asunder of soul and spirit, and the bones and the marrow. And so when one person reads it, it's alive, and it speaks to them often about what they need it to speak to them about, and to another the same for what they need. And I just think that was a little more broad. I don't think it was pinning down anything on sensuality as far as that goes.
All right. Well, thank you for that, and yeah. So thank you for sharing tonight, Michael. It was really great to hear from you. All right, I'm gonna hand it back over to Uncle Casey so he can just finish it out tonight. So go ahead.
That song, our closing song, and then Evan will send us off. got to give Brian a lot of grace here. He does a lot here with all the buttons here. So,
I don't know if I've ever had like a perfect night where I didn't forget something somewhere along the way, but we usually get it. We usually get close enough to get through. So.
yeah. And it's really different doing a live program like this. There's no time to edit here as we go. Once you say it, it's out there.
Yesu Ganarankwa Yesu Ganarankwa Yesu Ganarankwa Yesu
Papa, we give you thanks for gathering us with one heart and one mind to praise you. Fit us to serve you as our honored chief with all that we do. Keep us on your good road. Keep the darkness from our path. Help us to choose your ways. We praise these things in your name. Amen and aho.
Oh,
Thank you. All right. Eshek will be our speaker next week, and pray for him. And he's kind of putting a message together. In 2 weeks, we're going to have a friend that I met some time ago here. His name is Dennis. He's from Bethel University there in South Bend, Indiana. And he's been praying really hard about the message because that was the school that I went to where they wanted to hear some really hard truth. And so pray for him because he's putting a message together. His name's Dennis. All right, y'all. Thank you for being on tonight, hanging in there. Rosalind, thank you for coming in and sharing. We didn't get to see you live, but keep coming back. And SJ is a great speaker. I'm sure you'll enjoy him if you join us next week. Everyone, have a good week and stay warm if you're in a cold area. If you're down here where we are, enjoy the warm weather.
It's going to cool down.
Love you all.
It's going to get a little colder.
Yeah, not that cold anymore. Good night.
But yes, good night. I'll try to stay warm. We have freezing rain here tonight, so yeah.